And here we go.
Hugo.
According to Jeff Goodman right now, it's going to be Hugo Gonzalez to the Boston Celtics with a 28th overall pick.
There were a lot of the analytics.
Oh, man, where's McNeely at? I want to see like the McNeely-Pritchard lineup.
You're going to love Hugo. High-energy guy.
Is he? Where's he
Spanish
from?
wing. He's going to be, I believe, NBA ready. I'm looking up. Only 19 years old. But
hold on, is this a draft and stash situation?
I don't think it is. I don't think the
Dude, we had a draft and stash before. He never showed up.
Yamadar.
Yeah, he had a few of them.
Johan Bagaran.
Yeah, we always have these guys that they never ever end up coming.
Don't worry about this one. So I do think the Celtics are in a position this year where they can nurture a younger player and throw him into the mix.
So the guy's making $2.7 million. We're repeater tax. That means that guy's making $10 million.
Well, let's find out what Isaac's got for him, like on a scouting report right now. Isaac Trotter joining us once again. Your thoughts on Hugo Gonzalez, Isaac?
Well, this was a guy that was a projected top 10 pick if we were doing this exercise this year at this time last year. So 6'6", 210 pounds, and his motor is probably the best asset of his game. He doesn't just play hard. He plays like really hard. Like the energy levels, he'll crash for offensive rebounds. He's always on the floor trying to get loose balls, always trying to put himself in position to fly around defensively. Right now at Real Madrid, he really didn't play very much. He was a guy that a lot of teams wanted to pay a lot to come play college basketball. Like BYU had a big time offer on the table for him to play with Yegor Demin. He chose to stay. That was kind of a mistake, I think, for his stock because he didn't get to play much for Real Madrid. It's a really good team in the EuroLeague. It's filled with grown men. Like he was kind of having to play an off the bench role, and so he's raw, right? Like he hasn't played a ton. So I think he has to improve his processing. I think there's a little bit of questions about his jumper. But when you play really hard and you're really athletic and you're 6'6" and 210 and have that type of frame, you can kind of see the appeal for somebody who, again, like I said, top 10 pick if we were doing this exercise last year at this time.
All right, so give us, let's go with a 1-year snapshot. So you said Real Madrid is a really good team. So are the Celtics. So is he coming in and taking Baylor Shireman, Jordan Walsh, is he better than those guys?
I don't think he's better than Walsh. Yeah, I think that Walsh is a little bit more advanced than him. Obviously been in the system for a couple years, better pedigree, a little bit stronger, a bigger body, right, as a bigger wing. I think Hugo is going to take some time because, again, like I said, he hasn't gotten a ton of reps. And that was the downside of staying at Real Madrid. And you're right, it's not going to get any easier at the Celtics. It wouldn't be surprising for me at all if he gets a little time in the G League next year.
It does seem like that could be a pathway. Again, the age and the idea that, the Celtics don't – the balance is going to be, can you afford to put him out there and give him minutes in a season where you might just be okay with the young guys developing? That doesn't mean he's necessarily going to come in and slot ahead of Jordan Walsh, ahead of Baylor Shireman, but can he push them in camp? Can he get reps? Can he learn on the fly? Can you send him to Maine during the regular season and give him G League opportunities?
Hold on here, man. We're all talking about cutting this guy, cutting that guy, cutting salary, and we're going to pay a guy $2.7 million that's going to go to the G League?
You got to trust your scouting, right? Evidently what they saw from this player overseas.
Yeah, but maybe what I'm saying is we're jumping the gun a little bit. It seems like draft and stash.
It could be.
Give him another year at Real Madrid. But we already know it's a really good club. What's better, paying him $2.7 million or calling up and saying, why don't you go back one more year?
Fair.
I will say this.
My bet, listen, I don't know anything, but my guess is.
Jonathan Givony actually tweeting out that Celtics, according to his source, that the Celtics are keeping this pick and bringing Gonzalez over this season. So that's what he has right now.
What?
On the reporting of it.
So we're going to bring a guy, okay, well, I guess he's better.
Hold on. Let me ask the question then. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, we got a guy that's a high motor guy but can't shoot, unless that is a domino where you're well, if we have him, we don't need this.
Right.
So, but no one said that.
Let's let the dominoes fall.
Yeah, okay. If he's good enough to come in here and take minutes.
We don't know, Scal. We don't know now. We got to wait. We got to be patient.
I always expect you guys to know everything.
So, but you brought up the right point, though. Does this mean something for guys further down on the bench that could be dealt away as well? So
let's say if you're trying to put together a package to move, and I don't mean to throw Sam Hauser into every package, but he's just the most movable salary.
Like a new drinking game.
You can potentially put whether it's Walsh and Hauser together, you can put different iterations of end of the bench guys together. There are moves to be made now that you can aggregate contracts, trade multiple players at one time, as some would say. And so I'll just be interested if this is a precursor, or if it's just they like the player. You can't have too many wings at the NBA level, and you're just going to bring everybody over and have this big competition for, hey, which young guy wants to kick their way into minutes, and which guys go up to Maine and learn up there.
All right, we're going to send it over to Kayla Burton with Coach Tim Welsh with their thoughts on the Celtics' 28th overall pick.
I mean, I was a little, if we're going to cut right into it, I was like, okay, this one took me by surprise a little bit. Hugo Gonzalez to the Celtics. Coach, what are your initial thoughts on this one?
Well, they're building for the future. There's no doubt about it. He's not for the present. There's no doubt he's not ready. He didn't play much for his team in Spain, but he's played with men. You know, he didn't come to college. It would have helped his stock, as Isaac said. But I think his maturity level was helped by playing in Europe, even with men, playing professionally. Although playing for BYU is close to being a pro, the way they run their program out there. So the thing about him is that obviously he's got great upside. He can shoot the ball. He can drive the ball. He comes from a playing family. And I trust that their scouts watched him tooth and nail every game, every minute, worked him out. They understand that he's a guy that has huge potential. And you talked about Thero, a guy like Thero, athletic, can dunk the ball, can run up and down the floor. Well, this player has skill. Gonzalez has a high game of skill. He can play out in the wing. He can play the way the Celtics like to play. He can play on the wing. He can play in the corner. He can bring the ball up the court. So I think down the road, you're probably not going to see him much next year, but more surprising things have happened. You develop and you play and you come in as a player that played in Europe already, then you're a little bit more ready, especially when you played at the highest level, which Madrid, Spain is.
Right. And I'm looking at some of the reports on him. Perimeter shooting remains a bit of a concern there. But, Coach, as you mentioned a guy who has a high basketball IQ. He's been playing in Spain, playing with some of these older cats who have to, you got to learn to play with those guys and adjust as well. Competitive, not only on the offensive end from what we're hearing, but also on the defensive end. So that's something that this team needs, and especially with Kristaps Porzingis not having kind of that big center. Yes, you can say Al Horford is in there and Luke Cornett and even Nemish Queta, et cetera. But, I'm curious to know when you have that experience overseas, playing in Spain, playing with some mature men who are of different ages, what can he bring? What can he not only bring, but maybe learn, develop here with the Boston Celtics? You say maybe not so this year right out the gate, but in the future, it could surprise some folks.
Well, he has a professional mentality at a young age, and that's important because he's going to come in here. He's not going to be shell-shocked by playing in a big city, by playing with older guys. He's also he's got a more ready body than some of the guys you've seen already drafted tonight. I mean, we pointed out some of the guys that came out before him. I mean, thin, they're not ready. They weigh 185 pounds. They got to put weight on their body. They're not going to be able to deal with the physicality of the NBA, where his body already is built for the NBA. Now, his maturity level, I think, is going to be fine. It's just experience now and age. Coming in and playing at the speed of the NBA is so much different than playing in Europe.
Yeah, 19 years old. But I'm looking at the Celtics, and for the folks who I'm looking at Twitter, I'm kind of surfacing the web, and you're seeing a lot of people like, why this guy? Or some are saying, okay, maybe I'll give this a shot. For the ones who are saying, why this guy? What from a coaching perspective would be your answer?
I would say that Brad Stevens knows basketball players. He's not your typical general manager because he's an ex-college coach, an ex-pro coach. He knows how to put a team together. And the thing about him is that I'm sure he studied every part of his game, and he likes the way the fit is for him coming into the program next year.
Yeah, I'm looking at this group, right? And it's so different than what we've been able to see from previous years because obviously Jason Tatum with the Achilles rupture and his rehab, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, we got to see if they're going to, it seems like, I don't know anything beyond I haven't talked to certain sources within the night or anything on their status, but if you're building around, at least up until this point, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, you bring in Simons, you got Peyton Pritchard, you still have a good chunk of this core here still together, and then you add a guy like Hugo Gonzalez to this group? Where's the upside with the Celtics in the East?
Well, first of all, not only though you lose those players, but who have you replaced them with? You talk about Simons, yes, but you've also lost 3 starters for next year. So not only you lost the players, but there's minutes to be had, there's shots to be had. In the East is wide open. Everyone's talked about it. You talk about the injuries in the East, most recently with Indiana, the Milwaukee with Dame Lillard having the injury. Where are the Knicks? They don't even have a coach yet. I mean, the uncertainty there certainly is out there. I don't know, Cleveland, are they really ready to make the next step? Everybody talks about Orlando, but they have to stay healthy. They have to prove it as well. I think the winning pedigree here, starting with Jaylen Brown and company and Derek White, will carry the Celtics a long way, and they should be more than competitive in the East.